Ah, yeah. So yeah, it was already quite a big goodbye the
Oh,
last
yeah.
call, but seemed right to have this particular one for the Singaporeans especially who definitely couldn't make it. But I think it's good to check in and check out just so there's so much happening all over right now. Becca's nodding. It just updated Kara. She had no idea. But it makes it more interesting, I think, and important. And I was just looking at my own thoughts right before you guys came in, and we have this family training happening here, and there's a part of me that's really getting bored with a certain part of all these. That's the chasing, the wanting, the needing, the over stimulation. There's something very sobering and like growing up. So I think that could be an interesting theme to think about and look at. Cara, you having been in Spain as well, where a lot of this
Yeah.
exploded initially.
That's what I was about to say. I remember that when I started my first intensive, we were already like having this question about, but this is
Mm,
inner dance and this is cap and why
mm,
are they saying in inner dance that the transmission doesn't exist? Since I came into this energy and community, we are holding this question, and I
mm,
saw the evolution. And I think we are like really in the growing up like wave, I think, but
mm,
still there is like a descent. So it's I think it's normal, but yeah, it's like something to heal deeply in the people, and that touches people like really deeply. And I remember so many dramas that were happening in Spain actually around this, so many competition, even in the creation of new schools
mm,
and new this and new that. So I thought it was like, okay,
mm,
going down a little bit and just calming. But yeah, let's see. My cat is going
mm.
sorry. And yeah, let's see what would be like 2025. I started to have like some like little interviews with people that want maybe to
Mm,
join a group in Spanish, and I will do
mm,
it in French too. So I'm really happy about that.
mm,
And I can see the desire of people to study. Really,
mm.
like they're coming to the groups and
Recording in progress.
they want information.
Julia, yeah, it's good. You had like two speakers on.
Yeah.
It's still echoing. No, is it? There's still an echo.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Uh,
Yeah. But the thing yet that I hear in the it's okay. It's okay. That we can hear that I can hear during this interview and the intention
mm,
of people, because I do this to know a little bit about themselves and their
mm,
intention to study, and it's really to hold contact. So I'm really like super happy to hear that. This is the really another
mm,
wave, and also above all like in Spanish. I think it's
mm,
important, but Spain, because Spain, I've seen like so many waves, so many schools like emerging. So
mm,
we were having this conversation yesterday night, like just with a potential participant, and she was telling me, "Yeah, I did this school. I don't remember this one, K something. There is always the K and A or something in it."
mm,
And I was saying, but you know what? It's all the same,
mm,
all the same. It's just for me. I think like I was telling her, like yeah, it's really the energy expressing herself like through ourselves,
mm,
just to hold it like uh in its like completude. I don't know if it's a word like correct one, but it's like entirety.
mm,
It's like to see the whole thing and not being in the separation. This is a work that I've been doing also since 4 years now. I'm in this community studying, um,
mm,
because me too. Actually, I entered through CAP, like through some CAP session, and then I found you guys, and I started this intensive of 6 months. So for me, I had a hard time at the beginning. It's not a transmission. It's not Harry Potter. There is something, you know.
What?
Yeah. So that was really like something
Mm,
like to change in me, you know. And you were holding these spaces for us to study, and I
mm,
remember you kindly invited me like to repeat the intensive, and I'm here today. Super grateful for that. Really, 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 really deeply
mm,
grateful, and being able also to hold space, like to have been able
mm,
to hold space for 1 year for a group that was like
mm,
I felt like a midwife, but also seeing the
mhm,
midwife like
mm,
emerging, birthing. So it was really a good, like, beautiful process.
Okay, I think this could help us to facilitate a conversation between us. 'Cause what we have been doing is we've been holding a study space. Um, so I'd like to maybe ask that question to ourselves, because even for me, studying is a vulnerable thing. It's I know that there's a lot of people who definitely aren't into it. When that YouTube conversation got posted yesterday, I wrote this piece in the morning because I wanted to process it, and that was being directed at one of the people speaking in the YouTube conversation, and that actually then got sent to that lady who was speaking, and the one who was delivering it said like she's not sure because you know the studying part isn't really that much of an interest in general where the people were involved. So I don't want to say names. So I got interested in that because I think that's such a paradox. It's all the more I think it becomes interesting to understand what is happening because there are these red flags being spoken that okay, this can happen, this is happening, this happened, and then we're made to observe that. So I'm really careful not to go into any judgment, which I think is so prevalent now. It's going to happen, like in all of these places. It's very easy to judge that, okay, that's not good, that's bad, that's wrong. But to shift that into like an objective space so that we can understand what is it in that person that is also in me, that is in us all, that needs to be understood. Because it's one thing to allow ourselves to be able to talk about it, it's another to be able to perceive what is the structural element, what is the theoretical element, so both of us can learn. I think that is really valuable in how we might all actually take responsibility for each other. Because it's very easy or tempting to just project it that, okay, then we would fall into victim projection. You know, these roles are very old. Some of the roles women play, men play. I really am interested in seeing new roles come up in how we see men, women, and everything in between. Um, so I would love to put a an integrative spin, not just a positive spin, but a whole systems way of approaching this. Um, so there were these CAP facilitators who join us coming into our second semester, and I was really interested in how we can move forward. Like, how do we not loop? How do we not get stuck? So for me, it has been the biggest joy, not just talking about CAP, but all the other schools out there. It doesn't have anywhere, when people go into the indigo process, when they go into a witnessing, a desire to understand in a deeper way that's beyond just how any one person might see it. It gives me like a lot of hope. It triggers that's what triggers the joy in me. Like I feel that that's the crux. That's the most important thing we should be doing right now. Um, Sometimes it will be crisis that triggers us that we have to look at that. But the problem with that opening is that it's very hard to be thinking when there's a crisis mode, when there's an emergency mode. The hormones would rush, the neurotransmitters would explode, something would speed up, and it becomes very hard to slow down to the point that I can take my time. It carries the crises, this feeling that I can't put time into that because that's not important. So when we come into a closing call like this, it becomes celebratory that people actually put time. Okay, it's the difference between the a priori and a posteriori. The a priori can be a kind of intuition where, okay, I don't understand, but I am spontaneously headed towards there because there's a part of me that already knows even without knowing. So that's intuition. And that's beautiful, but that could be balanced out by, okay, I can also know after the fact, that's balancing deduction and induction, how we can understand the whole through how we have uncovered the way the parts come together through all the experiences and all the the inquiries that expand across the sciences, the philosophies, the psychologies, the anthropologies, the neurologies. So I feel we somehow have this in our body that we've been going into the stance of hoping to balance through slowing down mechanisms, using epistemological terms and not stuff that we might constantly be borrowing from India or from spiritual lineage, a lot of which are super duper valuable, but in hoping to find like an equal space when people say just go into the simple, go into the basic, we are seeing what that actually does when oversimplification happens, which could be very usable for those who are in a hurry. It doesn't slow down, and then we don't spend any amount of time almost to reach a common space. So we're headed towards the end of 2024, and we have invested all or some of this year symbolically within this group, like all of this year to actually um extend a 1 year conversation on the inner dance process, um which is crazy. It's an achievement. It's a feat that I myself didn't think was possible or was going to be easy anyway. It's something we had to survive over sleepless nights, crazy hours. People can hardly even stand 10-minute lectures or 20-minute talks to actually sit with 3-hour journeys that's conscious and not like subconscious. It's quite huge. So I would ask the space, like, how have you observed your process of speeding things up prior to this really stretching out, slowing down process? Even though for many of us, all of us, it's just the beginning. How does that feel in your body amidst all the explosiveness that was mentioned by Carol just now? So maybe that could be a closing. Yeah. So if you could feel into what you take home from the 6 months or 9 months, what comes up to you?
I guess to piggyback on Caro and where this call started, it's interesting to me. First of all, I'm so grateful to be part of this group and to have found it in the perfect time. But it's interesting to me that it was my joining was in the beginning of this explosive situation. And now we're at the kind of tail end where all of the things that I knew but nobody else knew are coming to light. And so it's really about, for me, in this body, the questions that I've been really sitting with are relative to what you're sharing in terms of I'm trying to say power and powerlessness, and where us, them, everybody, and also within that where the ego lies, right? Where that yellow structure. I'm not articulating very well. There's so much going in my brain right now, but it's so fascinating to me. The not wanting to know and the wanting to know, the wanting to surrender and be disempowered, and then the wanting to stand in your power and speak. And just there are so many layers and levels of that, and in male female dynamics, and not just in this situation, in the CAP community, the spiritual community, in my own life with my family right now, in the women that I've been working with in these two groups that I was talking about yesterday, with PTSD and with relational issues, and in terms of domestic violence and things, and how much of that is repressed and unspoken for so long. And that's felt what this year had been, was like only sharing a little, or sharing through other people, and now owning that voice, but still wanting to be in this disempowered position. So of not knowing. So I've changed how I approach all the work that I do, and the biggest change really came from that very first call, which was not transmitting, and what that did to how I perceived myself as a space holder, and allowing the space to hold itself has been my entire process this year. And everybody in my classes know it, and all of the facilitators who still join my sessions know it, but they don't know why. So I've started lately to begin to speak about why, and it's really interesting, the ones who want to know and who don't want to know. So because it's really a threat to that specialness that made the ego feel powerful, the specialness of being the transmitter, the magician. Even in this dynamic where there's this guru where you're disempowered, or there's this partner that's so I guess that's where I'm at. I just really rambled, but that's what's coming up.
It's very clear, actually, especially that last part. It's really hard to put into words because there's so much at stake here. Okay, so welcoming those who joined late. We're doing a closing call, so this is like a moment of reflecting what the year was like in terms of what it felt like to be in your own brain, to be part of the process that is global, where there's so much happening across the world, and then there's so much that we're integrating and putting in our bodies. Thank you. Anyone would like to share what it feels like right now? Does it feel like? Oscar.
Hello, Pi. Hello, everyone. Well, I has been missing the last callings and has been interesting to feel the ending of the year and being in touch with the people in the group held by side to Irene in Latin America. I think that there's interesting reflections that I has been sharing in the integration process in Latin callings that I think that will be interesting to hear from this point of view, the similar sensations, but from different worlds. Well, basically, I think, and in my personal journey as a company and as a student and facilitator, I think, I feel that there's something that is not trying to, from my language, to mislead or creating messianic or ideas about exactly the opposite that the Bika was sharing before. But it's very interesting to see inner dance, not about the revelation that inner dance is, in terms of what is possible and what is the capacity and the abilities that are developed until today for creating such conditions and such processes as we are ready and trying to understand and making wrong in the spaces. But it's very interesting how is inner dance an opportunity to reveal itself again the biology. We need to find new ways to define what means to be alive and what is biology. Even in the way that we study and the information that is scientifically there is, even if it's trying to opening frontiers into this understanding, of course, is a Western knowledge that is have one leg or many legs, but it's not in the same counterpart that the Western side of the perception and the complementary aspects that are running in this system of interpretations that we are utilizing and integrating. So for me, it's very important to understand that inner dances is a very interesting way to reveal the body, to reveal the mind, to reveal to people a new way to understand the capacities of a human nature. For me, it's beyond playlists. For me, it's beyond energetics. For me, it's beyond the drama of life force activation. Even perpetuating and still on this time relating in terms of Kundalini in some terms, which is I already said my point of view, but into this path of taking responsibility and empowering our perception of what a human nature is and the possibilities that we are living is very important to all of us as a future the students, the future facilitators, trying to put more focus in what is the full spectrum of what body can do, how we can reintroduce these possibilities under the lens, under the eyes of this present time, and how much we are able to release of our facilitation role and how we can find new ways to find empower, sharing the power and revealing this. So I felt that for me it was a very interesting way to redefine the concepts, the process, and how introduce inner dance, how introduce what has been evolving already. And I'm very nostalgic in between of the challenge of certain topics and certain colors that they were from my side very more demanding for a company to understanding and even having this new revelation of that colors that was coming through the year. But anyway, I'm very grateful for being here, for being able to study with you all and being able also to have many change in my studies and my point of view and my personal life during this year. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, Pai and guys, and thank you for your patience and for the way to rebuild and rebuilding and adjusting and yes, and conducing a process of 1 year that I can't believe that this year has been done already. So thank you so much for all your time, for all the other trainers that has been very much for me inspiration in the way that you teach, in the way that you conceptualize, in the way that you were leading your groups, especially also Caro, which is here. Thank you so much, Caro, for all this encouragement in the way to put graphics. I need to make course about this. I'm very bad on PDF and Canvas, but this is such important aspect of a company. And yeah, thank you so much for showing me that it's possible and I can learn new skills. And yeah, thank you so much for letting me talk.
Amazing. Thank you, Oscar. There's so much groundedness that like melts from or oozes from or emanates from what you shared. The need to ground, the need to concretize a lot of what we already know, like conceptually, intuitively, bringing it down. So I'm really interested in how you expressed this journey into the body, right? Like understanding the body in a new way, being able to like speak to this here in our family training. Like I wrote this in a piece that I mentioned that I wrote a piece yesterday and I sent it out to the CAP group because of what's happening in that community. So we have two Kundalini activation facilitators who are actually conducting their own trainings here. They wanted to understand the curriculum because they were merely intuiting what they were already training people to do. They didn't really have a big backdrop, scientifically speaking. So at the same time, they're parents, so they have their kids. So it's quite chaotic and cute and amazing for the kids to be learning, sometimes with their parents, sometimes apart from their parents. So we started with the vasopressin oxytocin idea that inner dance would really contribute to, and because we're releasing so much trust and so much power. For me, oxytocin is a very interesting chemical, as is vasopressin, because it can open the space, it can bring about trust. But when it gets really intensified and really too strong, it could intermix with other chemicals like estrogen, such as we in men it would be vasopressin and testosterone. And I've really been fascinated to come into the understanding that the same chemical that can bring about deep trust, if it becomes too intense, it could actually shift into aggression, uh, anxiety, fear, protectiveness. Um, so I think it's so helpful for parents, and facilitators do serve parent roles. And parents don't need to always bring about dependency systems. Parents can be enabling, can be nurturing, can be like coming from an equal space. I think it's very, very interesting to understand how love in the body is actually also fear, that it's exactly the same mapping. And I was running my head around this topic yesterday as these conflicts are starting to arise within the Kundalini space. I'm not sure how well facilitators can structure the work if there is not that line separating the two. because when the catharsis is happening, it can get really intense. That love is actually fear, and that's what we call energy. That's what we call the rising of Shakti. It is a lot of power. It's a lot of emotion. But then to structure things, to be able to bring about a long-term therapy, it would be interesting to somehow understand what is happening in the body, not just to keep triggering it. That's why I think it's a psychedelic, because it can act as a relaxant. It can open the space, but it can very much contract the space. And somewhere in between that, it's very psychedelic. It can really provide a lot of bliss. It also has the power to shut down the thinking process, the rationality part of the brain. The default mode network can shut down. It can be one of the factors that fires up the corpus callosum, that then rewires the cingulate cortex. It might have been responsible for the autobiographical self and the part that understands what is right and what is wrong, what is socially apt and what is not apt. It's where you start to construct new rules. To a child, that could be really, really wonderful, but to anyone who's accessing the power that's coming through. So I find that really interesting and paradoxical, that the process, the energy itself has that ability to shut down the thinking process. But then when we're able to talk about it, to study it, to look at what's happening in the body while we're experiencing it in the body, I think that's what would do it. So I'm taking a lot from how you spoke about the body just now, that now we are in the body. We do feel grounded because we are conducting the activations in the body. The spirit needs a body in order to experience itself. If we didn't need it, then we could just end the experiment then and there. The goddess energy, universe embodied, is what allows us to unravel across time and space, stories, relationships. This is how we create. This is how we experience. And in many senses, it's also how we perceive, like the body, so that we can ground spirit. The body is the grounding of spirit. It's something we don't validate. It's something we don't oversimplify by borrowing old notions that says that the body is not it. You have to transcend the body, you have to go up. But that's not the contract. The contract was actually to embody spirit, to incarnate. So yeah, spending time with these parents who are handling other bodies, 5-year-old bodies, 11-year-old bodies. I was witnessing how they were so, the word that father used was nourishing. He said, "This is nourishing because this is helping me understand not just the healing work, which they thought was the reason why they came here. It A healthy dose of oxytocin and vasopressin is exactly what leads to healthy parenting. It's what defines that you will be a good mom and a good dad and a good wife and a good husband and a good brother and a good sister, that you would be able to interact with people in a balanced and healthy way. So just these simple starting points, I think, could just stretch out into all these possibilities. And I totally resonate with you. That's exactly what I wrote. We need a new understanding of love and fear and parenting, because of this new understanding of the body. The old understanding is evolutionary. The reason why we had constructed these chemistries in this way that the same chemical that allows a parent to protect a child, which is oxytocin and vasopressin, it constructed the family within mostly the animal species. It allowed mothers to protect the kin, that which belonged to them. Evolutionarily, we then needed to protect the child against the enemy, those outside the tribe, those not familiar. I'm not talking about the human mother right now per se, or the human father. I'm talking about the lioness. I'm talking about the mother dog, the mother eagle. That's how a family structure was built, like in the body. It was oxytocin and it was vasopressin, which we release in an abundant amount in the inner dance process. Without that, there is no inner dance process. But is it not interesting that that same chemical would then be the one heightened in terms of production and reception? That would be, used to fight off the enemies, to protect the child. That's like the traditional family system. So when we observe what's happening right now in the overexpression, the explosion, the it the same chemical that allowed families to happen in the animal, in the human, actually breaks the family model, because we are definitely coming into a non-traditional family system where we are meant to respect and love unconditionally, not in an aggressive way, even those that we don't like, even the people that are alien to us. We don't love people just because they're inside our bubble, just because they're inside our community. So for me, the inner dance process, if there is a set of big reasons why it exists here and now, this could be one of the bigger ones. It's to help redefine, it's to help create these adjustments that need to happen, because our definitions of love, unconditional love, not like controlling love, I think a lot of the unspoken, what Becca spoke, there's so much unspoken stuff inside our bodies. And these aren't just the conversations that needed to happen with your mom, with your dad, with your partner, with your children. These conversations are very old if we perceive them to be in the body, not psychological conversations, but embodied conversations, because the conditions are rhythmic from the circadian point of view, which is ancient. It's super duper old. And the intensity that is rising up, influencing and affecting bodies, is radically altering the formulations. So a scientist might see this as chemical, but a spiritual person would see this through pure synchronicity. That we designed all this, not consciously. We were subject to it. The opportunity being given to the human is to hack its own system. And its own system isn't just a human system. We are the part of the earth that's able to look back at itself, to witness itself, to reflect upon itself. The human is the reflexivity of the earth because of the mirror neuron, because of how we have modeled the autonomic nervous system to be mediated by the prefrontal cortex, to be able to hold abstract information dimensionally through metaphor, like embodied cognition, through the way we were able to harness our movements that allowed us to store information across our spaces in an organized way. If we go to the roots of all these formulations, something as simple as the oxytocin, vasopressin, testosterone, estrogen, dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, these are what we're exploding. These are the drugs. These are either what's causing addiction or insight. This is definitely like super rich stuff. I think the spiritual part would be the confrontational, like really getting to ask in a radical way, what is fear?
Dejen
You know,
Sebastián que le echan demasiada dosis
what is insight? Like, how do we understand intelligence as opposed to stopping the thinking process? Um, so I'm really grateful actually for every single thing that's happened globally that brings us into this amount of reflection in the world, so we can observe what is happening in our own bodies and in the bodies of so many without bearing a judgmental point of view, but just to almost be curious, like what would it be like to be inside that person's body right now? What is being modeled? So that we can learn, you know, like we can take responsibility on that level, that okay, that's in me too, because I share the same rhythms and chemistries. It's just that maybe I was experiencing the earth a little bit differently and I'm wired differently, but potentially we could all be this. We could all be the Mother Teresa model. We can be the Hitler model. We can be the Vincent van Gogh model or the Einstein model. Anything is possible at this point, because of the sheer change in the amount of activation happening in neural networks. So I'm taking actually a lot from what you spoke, Oscar, with a lot of force, especially coming from South America, where the formulations are very, very old and would really reveal that the word revelation, there would be a lot of reveal there as humans come into really heightened intelligence, you know. Thank you, thank you. All right. So open to shares. Who would like to take their turn? Oscar, you can speak later if you feel inspired to do so. There's so much in what you shared. Okay. Who would like to contribute? What are you taking home from the year? What's going on inside your system?
I just wanted to answer to what you talked like with Oscar about the body and about what we've been like studying like during this whole year. Yes, the endocrine nervous system is like giving so many clues when you observe a person and when you listen also. The thing that is really interesting with what we've been doing is how we merge spirituality and also the holographic, like spiritual spectrum, if I can say that, like image, like that is been reflected and what's in the body. And once you understand that it's just the same thing, like the science and the spirituality, and it's just expressed in another way. When you observe people and when you listen to their story, how do they talk, the emotion that is emerging from this situation or this explanation, you have like it's like a map and you have like kind of an intuition and you can tap into this that we've been studying with the hormones, neurotransmitters, and just to have this deep intuition like in like in transformative medicine, transformation medicine, like something like you don't need to have a scanner, you don't need to open the body actually to have an understanding of what is going on. So I'm super amazed about the work that we've been doing like together, and all the digestion that you did like by for us also, and how you do connect all these maps, because it's helping a lot when one want to use the mandala, and when we listen deeply to people, when you observe, you access to this kind of like layers that were like kind of invisible before, because we think in a linear way. So going into the hyperpriming connection also is really good, because yeah, just it's maybe silly, but I was watching like a documentary on Celine Dion, and she's like sick. I don't know if someone saw it. Like she has this disorder that she's really stiff. It's really rare for her. And I was like reading her, like maybe I'm wrong, I'm not a doctor, but I was feeling that her corpus callosum was exploded, and she had like so much high. Maybe she went too far on the experimentation on her voice, and now she's like really she seems like really weak, but at the same time with a lot of ego, and she's losing her power. It's kind of sad. But I was reading her like from like such another space, like really, I don't wanted to judge her, but I was like, yeah, kind of reading, like doing like this like lecture, like it was really interesting. And yeah, studying the body, like does give us like this opportunity to read people also, to read ourselves, and to explain that when someone is in a loop, talking about this emotion or this emotion, it's just something that is happening in the body. So, like scientifically, like biologically, physiologically, something is happening there. So there is an expression with the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system also. So it's really, and thank you for that. It's so good.
So interesting. You bring up the diva. The what does it mean to be a diva? Yeah, right. What does it mean to be in the body or the brain of a diva, and at the height of it, like what would it do? You know, like I would think about Stephen Hawking, based on the documentary about him. Is he was like Einstein in the sense, in the version that he brought us what it means, the black hole. And the moment he found the formulations, he experienced that paralysis, that um, inability to move the body, which is interesting because in the black hole is infinite magnetism. So would it be that if you bring up Celine Dion, you're talking about the vibrations passing through her. You may as well bring up, let's say, Whitney Houston, Robin Williams. The biggest ironic thing that I watched 2 weeks ago, or no, last week, was the Christopher Reeve story. I mean, how how interesting is that? Like the Superman falling off a horse and then becoming another kind of hero, but at the same time, the paradox there is so huge. So I think within inner dance and all other forms of energy, we still have to talk about power and the Frodo Baggins principle, uh, or when Jesus said, you know, to the greatest amongst us will be the smallest amongst us. To be able to hold this much power, one needs to be so small. One needs to be so humble for us not to go into, let's say, a drug addiction and alcoholism. I don't judge those substances, what looks abusive. What I see is that they're trying to balance something out that went really, really intense. That's what I see. That when you stretch out the brain the autonomic nervous system in that way, you have to pay the bill. You have to somehow, that's what homeostasis is. You can only stretch it out so much. That there's nothing wrong with the superhuman. Muhammad Ali, and so on and so forth. Bruce Willis, right? Undergoing aphasia right now. I think we can handle that much spectrum, but there is a way to do it. So thank you for bringing this really unlikely, interesting example. It somehow means something. Oscar, you raised your hand, but it went away. So I don't know if you want to add to this.
Yes. Well, and another thing that I feel that I have to say as a consequence of that formulation that I feel that I consider is also if we can understand body and human nature, biology, all these different labels that refer to the system and the forces that they are maintaining you and holding life. If we are understanding this principle, we have a good news to share about the nature of life. We have a very powerful message of hope and facts about how we has been designed and how life express intelligence and react and interact by itself. And that idea basic, the foundational idea of humanity based on fear, religion, contradictory perspective about evolution, about life, about the idea of competence instead of cooperativism, all these revelations that science has been bringing has been becoming part of the poetry of life. Understanding this marvelous chemical reactions and this complexity, how is this simplified and cannot be simplified, but how it can be understood as life, as love, as continuous time. So I think that we don't need to lose this aspect that is based on facts and evidence, that we have a very beautiful good news to share about what really life is and what is the real background of our body. Yeah.
I think what you're hugely saying is we have a choice to either speak from a personal space. The good news that you are offering is we can actually speak for the species level.
Exactly.
That we're speaking from what we are, not just who I am.
Exactly. We are talking as a collective and identifying an intelligence and a blessing and a I don't want to bring again messianic or ideas about this, but it's important to understand that if life is an intelligence, maybe could be something that we cannot understand about this infinite personality, this how to manage in the same way that we are forced to understand that we are the universe in a dot, how also in the other side of the paradox, this other side, how could be. I'm not trying to go into that spiritual or goo stuff, but really there's a beauty, there's a life that is running through our knowledge, through this offering and the motivation that we have inside to serve and sharing this with other people. So yeah, I feel that it's important also remember these simple things. They are really simple things, but basic and fundamental. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's hear from those who haven't spoken yet, in case you guys have
Hi.
Corinne.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I try to to articulate because sometimes it's still hard for me to articulate my mind and to find my voice. But I was taking notes while we were speaking and entering into something. I don't know if deeper. I think I'm lacking maybe of something deeper until now in the path of inner dance. But what I wanted to share is coming from CAP, since where I began 1.5 years ago. I came from no knowledge, no asking, no nothing, just energy. Even if it's just one side of the energy, I understood that. But for me, what it brought to me was a lot of reconnection with my intuition, you know, a lot of, because I'm the type that needs to know in order to give it to others. And it was really the counterpart of what I always was trying to be also. I'm conscious that it's a part of my character that I was building. So to trust and to build this trust and this intuition and this energy was for me a big thing. And that's something that CAP gave me. It was like, it was a good way to enter this energy for me. And I had to work on it a lot on a personal level. Then inner dance arrived, and everything was quite, it was everything also with CAP, everything was like following the flow of energy too, like trusting this, you know, and going to CAP and then inner dance, and it just, at the end, everything was flowing. It was chaos everywhere, but everything was flowing, just believing in it, in this path. And inner dance is just the contrary. It's a lot of things, but it's knowledge plus and sharing plus, and everything is so intense and so overwhelming sometimes, but also so deep. And I really appreciate the sharings and the knowledge that you are transmitting and sharing without boundaries, and also the sharing of the people. And I could see people really speaking very deep and normal people, I would say, not, you know, the master or not, I don't know, any level of person, level 1, level 2, or whatever. No labels. For me, at a personal level, all these months were my reality was a lot of change, a lot of loss, a lot of fear, because I changed my life completely from one country, Mexico, which I loved, to United States, Texas, which is really different, completely different. And there was a lot of fear in it. But there was also a lot of introspection, which I was really looking for, and reflection, and going inside and going deep inside of me and seeing what was happening in my body, feeling it, being aware, being conscious of it, and working with this fear as my ally in order to read a little bit these messages that it was sending me. It's like, I mean, it's the best enemy you can have, because it's always sending you so much messages and so much deep stuff about yourself and about what is happening really inside of you and around you. And I was also like in this phase of also like the kind of aphasia, so that for me, all this information that I was receiving during the course, it was impossible for me to catch it. You know, I was there, I was present, and it was important for me. It was like on 2 levels. It was a good company for me, And I really appreciated that, but I couldn't go that deep into the knowledge, and I hope I will be able to do that and go on with this knowledge in the next month. But on these paths, I think I received a lot of messages, and this brought me to ways I want to explore now, with the knowledge that I want to go deeper in. But for me, also all this change happened with a big change in my body, which is midlife change of hormones, and we are speaking a lot about hormones. And this estrogen thing is like so crazy, and I'm feeling it when you're speaking about it. When I hear it everywhere, and I feel it, and I see it in my life and in my relations with people. But I also know that I am better with the understanding and with the this work, than I would be, or that other people would be. So that's really a way that I wanted to, I would like to deepen in the next month, to work on a project with this energy, maybe beginning with me and the hormones, and what effects it can have, the inner dance. It makes all this sense, this word inner dance, for this part of the hormones. It's like spinning all inside, from the brain to the heart to the reproduction parts of the female. So it's just so crazy. And the second thing that I wanted to approach, and that I already begun to approach, is this work together with horses, because that's one of my passions, and it was one loss that I had to go through, and that I already began to work with that on an unconscious way, but I'm on it already. So I would like to deepen that. And did I mention love? Because I think everything is about that. So I hope I was more clear this time. I don't know, but that's it, I
Very,
think.
very clear. Thank you, Corinne. This is beautiful and important. Also honest, holding always the paradox where the energy is so big, so the knowledge should be just as big. I think to help us move forward into the next year, how we would explain it to people, beginning with ourselves, CAP and inner dance are basically coming from something unitive, meaning it came from the same process. So speaking about the amount of trust that we receive from a specific modality, that's how inner dance grew, purely from an intuitive element, before it went really deep into the learning or knowledge process. The knowledge thing is there for those who have gone through so much intuition. When we then conduct the work, not just in ourselves, like doing this for other people that we're helping to hold, there would always be that super interesting, it's a paradox really, because we're emptying the mind, then when we also access the mind, how do you hold both the empty and the full? So there would be people who would be coming from the intensity that when you suddenly jump into so much study alongside people who have been studying for a while, the adjustments might be a little bit more abrupt, especially as you say, when there's so much going on in life. But who doesn't have anything going on in life anyway? But you are signifying moving from not just a country, and it might be quite close to each other, but crossing the border, it's another continent, it's another language. It's a very different space. That's not an easy jump. So I'm really happy that you stayed with us and you sat with the whole thing all throughout. And so thank you for letting us know what it's like to be like in your body. It's keep us updated. And thank you for bringing up hormones. I think it would really be interesting to continue some of our dialogues. We don't have to close the channels. We could, all it takes is one person who say, okay, I'm more focused now. I'd like to speak about this. Like in the afternoon, I'm doing like a lecture and I'm excited to go into the hypothalamus and then talk about the endocrine system and then the hormones related to all the colors that is balanced out when we do learn to affect the hypothalamus that governs all the other parts of all the other glands and all the other brain parts that find like a balance. Whatever age, like I'm dealing a lot with my son right now. He's 14, and we know what it's like to be a teenager, to have all these new hormones coming through the body. But I'm seeing something very balanced in the way that he's quite objective, even though he's becoming very emotional as teenagers do. There's a part of his brain that's very, very functional so that he's not reacting as much as he used to last year when his mom or his dad would tell him, okay, stop playing games now. Okay, maybe study more. There's something balancing out. So 2 days ago, I told him, okay, like where do we go now? And he's done quite a lot in the last 4 months. He's been studying French. He's been studying how to code, how to play instruments, how to draw, how to make music, and so on and so forth. So I told him, okay, I'd like to move into a new chapter. What would you like to learn? And Dad will support you. He said, okay, Dad, I want to learn how the brain works. I want to study something about the nervous system. And that just blew me away. It's like, oh my God, like, okay. So it is so simple for me. I literally just gave him 2 of the Zoom calls that we had in terms of the triune brain as a starting point, and I just gave him homework. Like, could you write me an essay regarding the autonomic, limbic, and endocrine system? And you can take your time. It's a joy to be him right now because he doesn't have to take care of anyone else other than him. He has the whole day. He doesn't even have weekends per se. He puts in the same amount of study time on Saturdays and Sundays as he would Mondays to Fridays. That's the deal. So he's going into neurology at the age of 14 as a starting point, and he can take his time. Like he's not pressured or anything. So he can hack his own system. I'm just building correlations where he can understand his own hormones at the beginning, and there's something very empowering about that we can. The homework I gave him the week before was to write an essay on metacognition and rhizomatic learning. Like how do you research on what it means to become conscious about your own consciousness? And having given him that homework, I think that brought about this interest in how the brain works, because there are probably hyperlinks within metacognition that talks about the brain. So I think it's really, really interesting for him to be observing himself right now, like his own body as he's going through changes. It's just like, it blows my mind. So thank you for holding the other end of the spectrum, Corinne. I think we're all now interested. Okay, so Julia, it's now your turn. In whatever language, it's okay. Would you like to share?
Gracias, Pai. Hablaré en español porque todavía no sé hablar fluidamente el inglés, aunque sí lo entiendo. Ok, este año. Bueno, yo vengo del mundo de Kundalini Activation. Hace ya 2 años que tomé el primer curso con ellos. Una experiencia hermosa. Marcó un antes y un después en mi vida. Sin embargo, sentía yo que había algo más que aprender, porque yo soy muy racional, he sido siempre muy racional. Experimentar la energía de la forma en que lo experimenté, para mí fue muy transformador. Y por estas cosas, por estas causalidades, me llegó precisamente el link del curso intensivo con Pai, y yo dije, wow, ¿qué es esto? Y sin pensarlo, me apunté al curso. La providencia proveerá. ¿Cómo lo pagaré? Ahí lo veremos. Estoy muy contenta porque ha sido un viaje interno muy intenso. De hecho, una de las cosas que últimamente he estado observando en mi cuerpo es que mi vista ha empeorado. Tuve que cambiar mis lentes inclusive. Algo muy extraño, yo de cerca no veo nada. Es algo muy raro. Quizás es parte del proceso interno que he llevado este año, dada las autofacilitaciones y dado el compartir con todos ustedes. Em, Sé que estoy recién comenzando. Yo estoy estudiando desde Chile, Sudamérica, muy lejos, far away de todos ustedes, muy lejos de todos ustedes. Em, Me ha costado, sí, estudiar. Me apoyo con inteligencia artificial para poder entender las clases. Am, Todavía estoy integrando muchos conceptos, estoy integrando muchos saberes, y estoy integrando muchas sentires también. Es un trabajo que claramente no, ni siquiera he finalizado, estoy recién comenzando. Eh, pero- no, mi gatita. No, ahí, gracias. Am, bueno, y desde la distancia me siento, bueno, acá soy la única que estoy en Chile estudiando. De cierta manera me siento un poco sola, aunque sí sé que estoy muy bien acompañada desde lo remoto con todos ustedes, desde la energía también. Me interesa seguir aprendiendo, me interesa seguir sintiendo y experimentando todo lo que la energía y todo lo que fisiológica, biológicamente, Inner Dance nos promueve, nos entrega. Siento que falta mucho, sin embargo, estoy poco a poco escalando peldaño a peldaño todo este vasto conocimiento, este vasto sentir y esta vasta transformación que he sentido, que he vivido y que ha vivido todo mi entorno también. Muy agradecida de todos, muy agradecida de ti, Pai. Nunca me era muy difícil en mi antiguo yo conocerte, eh, ya sea por la distancia, ya sea por, en fin, tantas cosas. Eh, pero desde que he experimentado esta práctica, desde que he sentido esta práctica cuando me pongo los audífonos y dejo que mi cuerpo me lleve a donde sea, he sentido y siento que gracias a Inner Dance, tanto mi vida como las de todos puede ser mejor. Y desde el fondo de mi corazón, desde el fondo de la gratitud que siento en estos momentos, doy gracias a Simona que me envió tu curso, tu oferta. Doy gracias a Oscar, a Irene también por acompañarnos acá en casa, de toda esta inconmensurable bendición que ha sido Inner Dance en mi vida.
Thank you. I understood some of it. My captions aren't working. I would ask Caro to translate some of the gist, the special parts that you might be able to recount.
Yes, she was like, to resume it like broadly, she was expressing how she's grateful for all this process of learning and like to be sustained and supported by this community. She was thanking Simona also to have shared this course with her. So like this, she could be able to jump into this intensive. She said something really beautiful also about her transformation and the transformation of her family also. It was not only her transformation, but it was the whole family that has been transported like through these waves. And she was also saying that she felt she's the only one in Chile like to study, and sometimes that she feel a little bit alone. And I can reflect on this like Julia, because I was not alone in Spain, but where I was living, I was kind of alone like doing it. So I do reflect with you like so much. And yeah, like yeah, she was thanking you deeply, Bai, for offering this course and this community and this intensive. And she say like incommensurable is like how do we translate it to the English? It's like infinitely. It's like gigantic.
Immeasurable.
Yeah, immeasurable. Thank you. You speak Spanish, right? So yeah, I think it was the main ideas, Julia. Is it? Yeah.
Thanks, Caro. Yes.
Okay. All right. So we don't have to drone on for too long. It feels really healing to put a closure, at least this Wednesday group. I still do want to ask, like, having listened to everything and to everyone, are there lasting notes, questions, ideas, just feelings, sentiments that came up as you were listening?
I have
Becca.
something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Becca. Go. Okay.
I was just thinking you had said about continuing the space, some sort of way to be connected as a big group, especially to the results of some of the studies that are ongoing. I'm especially interested in the sleep study. I don't know where that one's at. I don't know that there's been an update on recent calls unless I missed it. But yeah, to be connected a little bit more globally from just the CAP group that I'm in.
Are you guys in Studios Mundos already? So do you understand that that's now where the conversations are now happening? So
Okay.
we'll send a reminder.
Well, it's
Studios
already solved.
It's another channel and it's very color based.
Okay.
So a lot of the research on addiction will be coming up in the yellow. corporations will be in that color, medicine would be in the red, birthing, art, all of those will be color based. So I think that would be really amazing because the conversations there are community led. You know, it doesn't centralize around me as the central teacher. It's people sharing their questions. There are a lot of interesting things happening there, especially in terms of playlisting. People doing experimentations, sharing platforms. So do that today. Studios Mundos is spelled with a. Let me do. This is the first
You
call,
just put the link in.
or let me.
I
The link in.
shared the link in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to access my notes one last time, maybe. So just make sure that it's spelled. Mhm. Yeah, with a. Anyway, like yeah, Caro has put it, but STOUDIOUS. Look for this group on WhatsApp, and then when you sign up to that, we'll send the link anyway. You have to sign yourself up to the 7 different communities, which would be the different colors. So that's one. The other is we are opening up collaborative spaces for those who want to do what the trainers had done to help focalize local areas where the global calls would collaborate with local thematic calls that for those who are already holding space, that's an option that we're giving, that your people could be studying under you and alongside with you with other people around the world. So that would be just understanding what the 3-month recurring model would look like, that we are more or less co-designing with people. It's not something I want to just come up with. At the same time, though, those who have been part of the 1 year, you could still come into those, and we have really dropped the cost down to make it accessible to everyone, to make it super duper easy. So it's going to be like a fraction. We're discounting it to almost an impossible level. I don't mind like contributing my time in order to keep the studies continuing. I don't mind like doing as many calls as possible. So the nature of the conversations in Studios Mundos would be somewhat similar, but still quite different from the ongoing studies. In the ongoing studies, it would still be a guided curricular format that would bring the themes into focus, and I would tend to do a lot more preparation for that. So you can talk to Christina, and she can send the documents. Some probably have it already. Yeah. So, but there were some changes that went through it, so you can still talk to her about like possibilities. And yeah. So what else is there? Anyone else?
The
Corinne,
other
you had
interesting thing. Oh yeah, Kareem.
Becca. Yes. No, Becca. Go.
The other interesting thing that I just wanted, I had a session today online with somebody in Israel, and it was super easy for me to open I did it from my MacBook laptop, which is not large, and I opened my noise and had just a bunch of mini windows for each sound that I thought I wanted to use, and just I was able to do that. So without, because the app never really existed on the computer anyway. So I don't know. It's not completely dead if you use it in that way for an online session. It was totally manageable.
The
And
website
maybe
is
not in a live session.
the website is definitely a lot better than the app to begin with. That's what the creator is saying. Like, don't get attached to the app. If you understand how the website works, there are small things that he put in there that's really quite amazing. If you're while we're on the subject, do look for the free gifts. I don't know if you're donating, but he gives away
Yeah.
these amazing tracks that's very, very usable, very spacey, very nature-based. There's maybe 3 albums. That's for download, so you can store that in your system, and that would never get old. They're actually super powerful. All
Great.
right.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay. So Corinne.
Yeah, I took some notes about what you said today, and I'm grateful that it came back and that was on your writings from yesterday that you shared about what is happening now in this CAP LFA community. But the thing that remained in my mind was love is fear. This sentence was it made me think a lot, and I'm still thinking about it and processing it. But the first thing I was thinking is, sure, I understand love is fear, because on this human level, when we love something or someone, we fear to lose it. So it's love with boundaries, and it's love is disguised in love. If we manage to go to the real love, the unconditional love, which is for human very hard, because sometimes, I don't know, I'm very far from that, but on my experience, maybe I get detached from certain things I still love. But for example, if you are telling me what happens if tomorrow you lose your kid, it wouldn't be unconditional love about what's happening, I'm attached to him. So yeah, but when you arrive to that point of unconditional love, there is no fear anymore. So love isn't fear.
Exactly. It's so hard to hold the statement that would allow that to be possible. The one that says everything that's happening is happening for a reason. That is the one understanding that allows us to witness and not have to control, to not hold on to something. Because the other thing that might happen, it could be the worst thing in our imagination, but who is to say that that's not what needs to happen right now? That's very hard for the human mind to hold. So I thought that it was very interesting to understand what the word reason means. When you say everything happens for a reason, the word reason has many meanings. It could be causality, like because this happened, then that is going to be the effect. That's very linear. It's very deterministic. It's also very materialistic. It's causal. It's what economics, politics, religion, transmission, that's what that's where it's founded, like observing the world from a causal perspective. Inner dance observes reality from a retrocausal or omnicausal space, where like that's what power is built on. Retrocausality is very different. It's like it's already happened. What seemed to have happened already happened out there in the ocean of possibilities. Out of all the other potentials that could happen, it coexists. It's holographic in that way. That's something very meta-human. It's a superhuman capacity, what we normally only access in dreams, in death, in the near-death experience, in an out-of-body experience, in psychedelics, and also in a spiritual awakening. I do appreciate it when people say that they're accessing it outside of just laying down the mat and going through a journey, because that needs to be more and more an everyday process. And that's what trust is about. It's like, if we are facilitating a process founded on trust, when outside of the journey, we can see that you're not trusting that that is meant to happen for a reason. This means we need to redefine what the word reason actually means. So when you say reason, it could be reasoning, it could be how are you holding the system of interpretation. I think there's a spiritual meaning of the word reason, and we have to state that whole statement, like everything's happening for a reason. The word reason starts to mean like the omni causality. It's like the coexistence. It's all there. It's the mind that's more logical and struggling would be when you look at the statement like everything's connected. The mind that's striving and struggling would then ask, like, well, then how is it connected? I don't see the connections. I want to see the connections. There's another approach to that where everything is connected, and so all the connections are revealing themselves to me at the right time. So even when you're studying, when you're absorbing the information, even though we're not processing things in a logical way, it doesn't mean that we're not understanding it from a deeper level. Sometimes life needs to bring some level of experience that embodies the understanding, because sometimes we need to experience something in order for us to understand it. But sometimes the understanding can actually lead to the experience. When we plant the seed of possibility, like in this example, what does it mean that love is fear? You know, either because of attachment, but there could be other forms of love is fear. It could be anxiety, like because I care too much about my own survival, because I care too much about my son and daughter, then I would try to control all the conditions so that I can have the desired outcome. So then when people fight each other, there's still something very deeply rooted in like caring too much. These are very difficult conversations to have, because we really are maintaining a kind of image that we want to project, something we want to control, especially the more it builds up, and we don't want to lose it. So I think in the energy process, it might be getting lost, the whole point, when we build up the energy levels. The oxytocin and the vasopressin levels especially becomes really symbolic, because we're asking people to surrender, but the chemistries that we're activating are actually attachment based. It's the proprioception, asking people to lay down and closing the eyes, that can allow people to surrender. The neural oscillations that can spread across the brain through many brain regions, that also is a form of unlearning what we know, so that, like, there could be a bigger learning around what we don't know. But there are certain ways that we activate, touch the body, manipulate the body, that can elevate attachment levels, and I think that leads to confusion. We cannot not be confused, because when we utter statements like love is fear, it means that the body is built on the energy of paradox, contradictions, and oppositions. So I think even just learning to state this, to clarify and hold it there in the space, we would be able to interact with what is both conceptual and physical at the same time. So when you think about the concept of the mother, there's the human mother, and one of the most like beautiful forms of love, which is unconditional, would come from the human mother. But I've worked with enough people, with thousands or tens of thousands of people, to understand that the love of the mother isn't always the love of the divine mother. It can be very intense. It can be very controlling. It can be very attached. So I think this is what I mean about shifting evolution, shifting the way families had to be formed in order for us to survive. One of the reasons why there is this intensity happening in the global process is because it's very recent that humans have moved from survival to, if I could make up a word right now, it would be thrival. People aren't just merely surviving with the way economies and media have situated after the World War. People are now wanting to work on success, on materialistic wealth, but deep down underneath all that, there's actually a very old fear of scarcity and hunger that's still operating survival mechanisms. So because we moved from fear, when we experience love from a spiritual activation, it will activate the fear, the deep fear that will shift into, like, what I wrote about alongside oxytocin and vasopressin was dopamine. When we then activate dopamine, and dopamine is the recurring drug. It's the one that's easier to activate after oxytocin had arisen continuously. That's a drug of control. It's a drug of addiction. It will motivate people to try to get what they want, to try to achieve. So it would more or less press down a lot of very important self-work that needs to balance out the love and fear exchange, um, the bypassing that we might be seeing, that we might have been seeing, is hiding the lack of self-love, low self-esteem, lack of self-knowledge for those who are in a hurry, who want to make something a business model because of what they saw being practiced out there. I think we need to take responsibility for that. Like, people who help to create that sort of model at one point need to take responsibility, because especially in the age of Instagram, it really influenced how people see energy work as a very speedy capital. It's something you can capitalize on. You can make it a thing. Like a concept such as Kundalini could be bottled up into a brand, into a thing. There were these women having a conversation in the training a couple of days ago, and then they were asking these questions. How do you know if your Kundalini is awake? How do you know if you have a Kundalini, if Kundalini is arisen? How do you know that that's Kundalini? I wouldn't go into the debate, because the questions aren't being asked well. The bias there is that they're using the word Kundalini as if it was a noun, as if it was a thing. For me, the Kundalini is not a noun, it's a verb, which means it's not a thing, it's a process. To be specific, it's a process of change. Anytime there's a quick, abrupt change happening in the body, there will be these manifestations. There would be these phenomena. If you slap on a spiritual term, put it on top of that, it's very easy to ontologize that along with all the other notions that come with the word that you use. The connotations, the nuances would easily walk into that word that you're using. So when you simplify and generalize, there can be a feeling of empowerment and enabling when you understand that, oh, I can actually apply that in my own life more readily rather than use the Sanskrit version that is a lot more inaccessible. It becomes a transcendent thing. It's not immanent. It's like God or goddess becomes something beyond what is in the world. It doesn't become practical. It doesn't serve an earthiness that can be pragmatic. It's very hard to apply that to a schooling system, to children, to pregnant women, to addiction programs, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think we don't have to do much else right now. Like like the there might be a part of us that say, okay, after this, what now then? Like, what's the next step? We don't have to go that route because we are already in it. It's like it's already done. It's already being done. There's maybe nothing else to do except for what we're already doing right now. We don't need to be anyone else except for what we're already being, because these are already providing the slow shifts that are part of the whole. It's the process itself. Something that's not going to be in a hurry because it took so long to make us, to design us. So the redesigning might take, we're meant to enjoy it. It's not something we need to close. It's not a 5-day workshop. So it would be interesting how we all take responsibility, for sure, how we all grow up together. Like when do we start? So I would congratulate you. I would honor you. That's me saying thank you. My gratitude is that you are taking this time. You're not doing it tomorrow. You already put it in, and you continue to do it. If you know what I mean, because to go in a spiral, say like I can't handle it, it's overwhelming, it's too hard, it's I get lost, it's like too brainy. I don't want to go back to school. Um, there might be a crisis later on that might make us interested, but then what is that imbalance? I want to understand. If you already have been doing that and you put in the hours, you put in the year, you put in the months, that means that you're well on your way, as opposed to constantly restarting. It's kind of bipolar. It's like, okay, I want to get high, and then when I go down, then that's when I might get interested. To more or less keep that constant is something we really want to do today. And when we're mirroring that with each other, it really helps to see what the effects are when people do study and ground. So yeah, thank you, Caro. Julia, I think I'm not sure if you were raising your hand, but Caro, go ahead.
Okay, I think Becca has something to add before me, but okay. So it's question listening to you and also thinking about my own process and observing also people like in the group I was holding, and listening and watching people also mimicking. I'm thinking about the mirror neuron, and maybe I hope in 2025 people, facilitators or trainer, whatever, can find this laboratory like space, you know, like it's like making our own experiences in the space regarding everything, not only repeating what we are seeing, watching through this reflexivity with the mirror neuron. Can we break free from the mirror neuron? Because we can see that people are mimicking a lot what others are doing. And I remember when I started to study with you guys, I had like some cap sessions, and I was just like, but what these guys are doing with their hands, you know? I was, what? It doesn't mean anything to me. So when I started to hold bodies, finally 1 year after studying with you guys, I didn't touch the bodies. I don't wanted to pretend to touch the bodies because I was afraid to touch the bodies. So I was experimenting on the music, you know. So I'm dreaming about like these spaces that we can all hold and experiment with, like understanding that it's this energy, it's just in a pure evolution and in constant change, you know. It's like it doesn't mean anything to mimic someone like you know, when I was in Mallorca, for instance, or Turkey with you guys in person, I was seeing like people like recording what I was doing, you know, just to maybe later to just repeat exactly what was the point in the body was touching, you know, because this is nonsense. This is like for me an expression of the insecurity also in the facilitator, so which is normal. I think we all go through this, but I'm dreaming about like this is of experimenting, you know, and that we can all like find our own structure in the music, in the touch, in everything. Do we need really to touch the bodies? I remember when I was not touching the bodies, people were talking about ayahuasca visions. And when I started to touch, and they were like falling like into another dimension, about attachment, like emotion, loopiness,
So
something like
that would
that.
be more ecstasy and MDMA then.
Exactly. Totally. But I'm more like from the psychedelic space, you know. So I'm like missing these spaces also. But finally, I'm always saying finally I'm going to Maya in February. Yeah, after 4 years I did we do that finally, but I was not in a hurry to come. It's not a final, it's not the final step for me. It's just another stage, and I feel really grounded to come to Maya after all that we've been through, and after this 1 year process, after the typhoon reconstruction stuff and all, I'm like super
Yesterday was
excited.
the exact 3-year anniversary. Actually, it was December 17th when we got
Gosh.
destroyed. Mm.
So yeah,
Uh,
that's it. I was wondering about it, like experimentations, evolution, mirror
mm,
neuron, so like to develop like autonomy.
mm,
It's just to be
mm,
autonomic, you know, like to be
mm,
independent as we
mm,
are monads, but complementary also. So thank you.
mm. I would say something quick about that YouTube thing that we're referring to, that conversation. Like these two ladies were talking about the copy pasting that was happening in all these pseudo brands, and Italy was just listening to that. She said, "But actually copy pasted in her dance." So I'm like, yeah, that's true, and then it wasn't being acknowledged. But then I moved on from that, like later in the day, where I'm actually glad that we're not needing to hold that in that way, at least from our end, like because there's something about copy pasting in the language, the psychological, even the anthropological would be the cultural. It's conservation or conservative means to conserve. It's to not change. So when you think of religion, such as Buddhism and whatnot, there's a conservatism there where the truth would have been the same 1,000 years ago as it would be today. The point is to not change it. That's what shamanism does as well. Like the only one time I did ayahuasca, I wanted to understand what was there. I did it in Thailand, in Kopangan. and I was observing the shaman, and okay, they're conserving the messages that were part of the Amazon at that time, that nature was speaking to with the human body. So now with neo shamanism, where it's not anymore the forest where these medicines are being used, there's some conservation, but there's also like alteration. So I think when we try to institutionalize, when we try to box in, when we try to hold on to something too long and too hard, that's actually when it starts to die. I think that's some of the irony that we're sensing in the stories that are being spoken within the energies of transformation, whereby the nature of the process is really about letting go. And that's not always represented. So when we hear women speak, it's quite different from the way men speak. Women speak more from possible conservation, but there is something in the energy that is meta female. There's a process in the woman that can tend to be very cold, and that could be embodied by men and women. There's something very cold in the energy that can really just watch it, they can detach from it and witness it. So when I do see alliances, when people start to go into these, like, I love you, I validate you, only because you are loving me back, because we are part of the same team. That's what I mean about oxytocin going into toxic levels, not just the healthy levels where a mother would bond with her child. Oxytocin can be that, because the part of the brain that oxytocin can activate, including with the hypothalamus, it can come from very primal fear. It can come from the fear of dying. It can be very, very old fear. So I think that's partly what's getting passed on through generations that we are meaning to break. Um, so like all these practical questions people have then about, like, how do you touch people? How do you hold people? What's a new way of interrelating with human bodies? I think the super abstract, the information rich, and then the super practical questions people do have, they need to go together. People need to think metaphorically, not literally. But right now, really, there's really that level of copy pasting right now. A lot of people are still, yeah, like that was really painful for me. I shared this in our last training here in Maya, in Mallorca. We had announced to people, I don't want to come, like, I don't want to be in photographs. And I knew precisely why I didn't. And there were people who, having heard that, they really snuck it in. And then, they would do it in such a way that I had no time to say no. And then they would be hugging, and then they would, like, take the the selfie. And I heard, I would just hear about it later on. I'm not in social media, but then there would be these people, like, as they start to promote their own workshop, they would have the photograph of being with the so-called master. Their super dream would be to be caught in a video where I would be touching them in a part of their body, and then they would start to go wild, because it means that they received the transmission, that they actually have it because it came from someone who gave it to the one who trained all the other people. So there was still, like, a lot of that going on. Mallorca was very, very interesting for me in that way, because it was in Spain. It was like receiving a lot of the people coming from Ibiza and Barcelona, where a lot of these stories and these frameworks were really solidified in people. That's why the economy, the kind of pricing that's scattered across the world, a lot of that was built in Spain. The price increases were happening in Spain because people were willing to pay that much, because if you can get that where you couldn't get it from anywhere else, supply and demand, it's simple economics, you can really pull up your rates if you are the only one giving it, and there's like a hierarchy, there's like a pyramid. So I think a lot of that's going to be breaking soon. Um, you know, like partly the work needs to be devalued in a sense so that there could be adjustments, and then we address like, why are we doing it to begin with? Like, what's the point again? What's the reason? As people go into modes of skepticism, like, I don't believe in this work because that could happen to this or that. We have to speak a lot more clearly now to bring context to what is actually happening in people's nervous systems. How is this changing people's lives, both in the short term and in the long term? So maybe there's a last residue where people are still believing in that model. It could be the end of, no, it wouldn't be, but it could be the decrease of the copy pasting. Maybe there would be more diversity in the way bodies are moving, if we were able to situate something not transmission oriented. So yeah, I was actually happy that inner dance wasn't being in that narrative of copy pasting, even though the thing that was being talked about was actually copy pasted, and yet these women were saying, but people are copy pasting this, but the thing that was being held was actually copy pasted to begin with. um I'm glad because that was even talked about, because there has to be something beyond copy pasted. So they were on point enough to point out that that's not what it's about. That we need to go beyond that, but we need to take responsibility, because if we're saying that and yet the thing that we're doing is exactly still, in fact, a very direct copy using the same uh the same thing that the mirror neuron had absorbed over and over again, I don't think it's going to be easy to break away from it. But at least it is happening now. The, this, yeah, the thing beyond what's all right. Becca, I didn't see your hand raised, so I would love to hear from you at this point.
Yeah. I love that so much. I'm still laughing from what you said. Sorry. The copy pasting is amazing, and that's part of why I love
Did you just say
so
the
much.
cappy paste?
The copy pasting is so awesome. No, what I love so much about working with all of these different groups who would never have access in a million years to anything relating to Kundalini or these videos or the CAP language. I love the purity of a group that has no idea what they're walking into and just seeing what emerges in that space, because every space is different. There's no preconception. And I love that, like that's what I feel is coming next year for me, and working with all these different teen groups and, maybe battered women's groups and formerly homeless people groups and things like that. So, but to get back to why I raised my hand, it's very short, but the everything happens for a reason. To put a bow on this whole experience of learning for me, it's the balance between the active figuring out what that reason is in the body, in the hormones, in the brain, and then dropping all of that and just being with everything happens. And everything is happening. Everything is presently happening. And being in that space in life and let going of the needing to control, needing to know, needing to have a reason for things. And it's just everything is this. But I still need all of the knowledge in order to hold that space. So that's this year. That's it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, especially where you're at in America. I think it's really with the recent political decision that paves the way for the next 4 years. I think reasoning there's very little reasoning in terms of the power structure that defines what people's lives would be, like in women's bodies and then in the economy. There's going to be a very huge disruption. We have to say, okay, that's happening for a reason. Like he's happening for a reason. So then all the more it would be interesting to see what is that reasoning then. One needs to really take many steps back to witness, like, well, what is controlling all of these? That's not just a conspirator. That would really need dimensionality. I think all the more we would need the depth. It needs to go very deep. We need to go into a time perception and a space that is able to dream within the dream within the dream. That for me is the non-judgmental. That for me is the non-dual state. When we can accommodate and not invalidate anything and anyone else. Is every time we invalidate, we're creating separation. It doesn't unify anything. I don't want to waste all of the trust that people had given to the spiritual process of laying down and giving it their everything. Because it scares me right now if we go into this level of distrusting. We have to be very careful to help to hold those we've been holding, because if it is about like, okay, I'm the space holder, I matter, that would influence and materialize in all the others, like what we're projecting. It would easily allow people to feel into what you're feeling, and it would transmit through resonance. So I used America, but it really is global. Like right now, reasoning is getting lost because the brain through media is severely affected. The image laden brain, the brain that's so image based, the brain that's so worried about how other people might see them, the brain that's trying to achieve status and stability through the manipulation of the image. It's image management that we're interested in, including in the energy work, because people are becoming sound. And then when they trap that sound into an image that's shifting into sound, it actually doubles up into a higher narcissism, because it becomes a spiritual ego. And when the spiritual ego collapses, it's very hard for that to find once again its purity. We would re-traumatize people because we would go back to that moment when we lost our innocence. And the loss of innocence is, when did you lose your trust? When were you manipulated? When were you abused? Going back to the autonomic nervous system, going back to the reasoning that why we are conducting the work is to tap into people's response mechanisms so that we can respond in a different way. Yet when something happens that triggers the mind, body, brain, spirit, when we react in the same way as maybe our mothers and fathers reacted, love or fear. Love, yes, conditional or unconditional. That would define still what is love or fear. What the process conducts is love and fear. The doubt won't ever go away in the human experience, because when we are living human lives, there will be no certainty. We can never be certain. That's why we try to shy us away from uncertainty. The reasoning, there are so many reasonings, but one reasoning behind this process is to allow people to go into the unknown. And when you allow that, then the more you don't know, the more you actually have access to the unknown, because there is that space where everything is known. When we say not knowing anything, it just means not knowing things from the limitations that might be covering up the knowability of the unknown. It's the attitude that I already know, that I don't have to learn. I'm not curious. I'm not in a state of wonder. You can't teach me anything. I don't trust you. Even the challenges, especially the challenges that's meant to be controlled, I don't like that. Like crisis is the spiritual teacher. So we have to be careful with our messages in such a way that all of these would apply to everyone else, all the wives and husbands, all the brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters. They would be taking these messages and applying it even to the simple aspects of life. If our message is we must trust that, that's the animist primitive tradition. In the Philippines, that was the tradition. Before we were granted God, we believed that spirit existed in everything and everyone, every day, everywhere. That's what was colonized out of us. The feminine, that is the true feminine principle, that spirit is in everything and everyone. With that, then there would be everything happens for a reason, right? Because that is applying what is spread across the space into time. That's a time discursive element. Everything's happening for a reason. The happening describes that we are in a narrative. A narrative is that which has a middle, a beginning, and an end, which is causal, which is what we choose. We choose to unravel through time so that we can remember what we choose to forget. The new brain is shifting from that. It's understanding that, okay, there's coexistences, there's parallel realities, there's holographic universes, simulation, and I begin to dream, and I am the dreamer, and I am the dreaming, and I am the dream is the subject. It's the destination as well. The dreaming is the process. The dreamer is the dreamer is the subject. The dream is the object. That would present to us like a whole mapping, really. It would bring us to, like, how did we create all this? Beginning with the original thought. It did start from somewhere. It's the infinitesimal point before the Big Bang and after the black hole. It's like that is our nature. And if we don't get on with it, if we don't actually just roll up our sleeves and get to work carrying the human with us, I think we will be in this process of vying for attention, of going for motivations, agendas, where that relates to image is the outcome. The evolution of the human into the image, which primarily was possible uh, through writing. When we learned to document the sound into rocks and paper, we took the sound and made it into an image. When we drew paintings in cave walls, that was already shifting the sound into the image, and that brings about an illusion of permanence. Sound is always dying, even as you utter the sound that's being born. You can never hold on to it. It's like incense smoke. We're actually very afraid of that. We're afraid of death, and we're attaching to the image because we want to hold on to the sound. So when you ask people to lay down and close the eyes, that's exactly how the healing happens. We become a sound, and it's very hard to hold on to you. So when you bridge these two together, you will find that there is a structure that allows us to reflect upon, like, what are we as a consciousness that's becoming conscious of itself. So again, there's still so many ironies there that presents all the solutions for us to already have more than a running start. We already know so much, but when do we start? So talking about the politics, talking about the argumentations, the dynamics out there. Now coming into Christmas, it's very hard to focus in Christmas. Coming into the holidays, into the new year, what people will have a hard time holding on to is continuity, because in the energy and in the way life is right now, it's full of disruptions. TikTok is like Sesame Street. It's like the attention span of people is really, really short. It's like I can watch that 30-second clip because that's about as much as my brain can handle. Give me a 3-hour thing. I can't sit down with that. I don't have the time. I want to hurry up because I have too much to. I don't want to lose out. Everyone else is doing amazing stuff, and I might lose if they get ahead of me. But to get ahead really means to stay behind, to look back at what has been, so we don't keep looping, which is to repeat the same thing we've been doing over and over again, which is history. It's not to invalidate history, it's to shift history by looking at it rather than loop around it and live in it again and again. The kind of history that I'm speaking about isn't history as a linear history. It's the history of history itself. Meaning like time and space didn't look the same millennia ago, and then the way we're going to understand time and space in the coming years, not millennia, will be entering into other dimensions. We may as well work on it now. So this is me retracting my judgment. I don't see anything wrong with whatever anyone is doing. I think it all serves a purpose. I think they were all important in helping us to understand. In fact, all these problem spots, all these conflicts, they push us many years, many decades forward into the next. I validate even this thing with the Kundalini activation process. I actually validate it. I validate its existence. I understand why it's there. I don't have to stay with the simple statements that without it I couldn't have met you, or this and that. It was hugely important. I don't devalue it in any way. I'm not interested in just bringing it down. Whatever happens to it from now on end, it's not my place to devalue anything. I believe that that's showing us something inside the human that needs to be seen, and I can learn from that. I could understand that, and because I've been learning through inner dance all these years, when I see that, it's like, okay, I did study many things that helps me to understand what's happening there. But then listening more with detachment, I can see even more. And then we can study even more. So that's inner dance. When people do ask what's the difference between inner dance and this and that is what inner dance is. It does include, it does validate, it doesn't create it takes responsibility. It doesn't, it doesn't separate. It was built entirely on the spirit of that too is spirit speaking to us, just like the least spiritual thing out there is also speaking to us. Yeah, I'm having fun. This is good, just the 5 of us. It's it's nice. Okay, anything else, any additional thoughts
Yeah, just yesterday, I just forgot about this call, and fortunately you put the message, and I just realized I was listening to this playlist. It's been a long time that I was not listening to playlist. It's a long rainbow night. So I think it's just aligned with everything, like to close also this 1 year like studying process and transformative process. So thank you. Thank you, really. Super cool dialogue.
I'd like to clarify that I don't think I would do another 1 year after this one. It's so intense. It's beautiful. So we need to celebrate that we're still here. You know, we didn't loop. The 1 year breaks the loop. Like how much can you talk about um this energy thing within a year really breaks the loop. You guys know what I mean. The loop is just call it energy over and over again. Within 10 minutes, it's already quite hard to to expand on a topic, especially around the framework that actually shuts down the part that explains. It can only describe, which is the loop. So I think we should be proud of that. We should be amazed by the fact that we committed what even to me might seem quite impossible. Not just in my own. I can't do this alone. Like for other people to make that commitment, the Filipino in me is already quite shy to take up like an hour of a person's time, but to formalize this, to you might have heard me speak about this before, but my definition of inner dance is the professionalization of the weird. It's the academization of the strange. And it takes a 1 year to do it. You know, we know that the weird belongs to the world, which had been suppressed, which is called magic and mysticism. But we don't live in Oz. We don't live in Wonderland only. We live in the world, a world that could be very very magical, but nonetheless it does need to put food on the table, and it needs to pay rent, and it needs to pay for tuition, and it needs to pay for taxes. So spirit seems to be working its way through us. So grounding, like wow, like I wanted to speak how amazing it is that the one person to have worked on addiction through careful research alongside science-based people comes from CAP. That's me validating CAP. It was a CAP facilitator who came to a Turkey training 2 years ago. No, God, it was actually just last year. It was just last year. It was exactly a year ago. And then she just went to work right away. She didn't beat around the bush. Since she got home, she was talking to institutions. She was talking to a psychologist who had influence, who was already then um, talking to others, talking to this woman. And next thing you know, it was self-organizing. I'm talking about Irene, who is holding this particular timing. She's not with us today, but she's working with Oscar, who's also from Colombia, who lives in Mexico. Um, she didn't wait. She just went into it, and because she put in that time, which wasn't easy, she really had to bridge the science, bring it down. She also didn't have that many people doing the work in her neighborhood, yet she was able to introduce it through her trust. Now we have a starting point. We will have data within a matter of days or weeks, and that data would be shareable to other science-based practitioners, just like the prison programs that's happening in Europe that will then be shifted into Becca and Corinne, you would love this. It's going to happen in the US in January. There's a very huge prison program.
LA.
It's in LA. I think it'd be interesting to ask her, do you need hands? It would be really
I
interesting
know.
to,
I
you know?
I would be on a plane in a second.
So you know who to write already. It would be Lisa and Caroline. or at least just yeah, like just witness from it. Marsha lives there.
In January or February? Soon,
It's
right?
it's in January. Even if they didn't allow me in the space, just to be around that vibe and to support the facilitators would be
Amazing.
really quite huge. So that's not the only thing. It's all these other things. So that's part of what I want to say. I recognize a part of me that can easily lose my sense of these. Because if I'm not able to support these mechanisms, if I continually give in to the demand for Kundalini type trainings in Maya or online or in Europe, I could easily lose my own head. So I've been really wondering quite a lot, like the last months, how do I organize my next year? Even more, because we tend to receive all these emails, and the questions that come up are pretty much the same. So I would love to have more continuity. I haven't had time to go into the music. I really like pushed myself to be able to construct that Spotify channel. But I really would love to apply new formulations, musically speaking. Like Caroline was saying, okay, I'd like you to build 2 or 3 playlists for the jails in LA where the inmates might even be able to use it for themselves. That for me is like, oh my God, that's so good. But that doesn't take a day for me or a week. It would actually mean studying what their brains would look like. How would I approach the default mode network, their precuneus, their orbital frontal cortex, their cingulate gyrus, all of which would elevate modes of responsibility and self-reflection, not just to empty things out. It requires years to build like an effective system. With intuition, it can be done. It's how we've done it. But I do want to go into the next level of things because that's already where we're at. So energy conservation as opposed to energy consumption and energy competition is, I think, a good year end and year beginning meditation. What can I trade? What can I say goodbye to as I go to what would serve not just me, but like humanity? What is energy conservation? What is energy conversation? What is energy conversion that heals the energy competition and energy consumption that seems to be eating us up, that's creating this energy vampirism that could really expend a lot of like what people use. It really expends energy, even though it seems like we're exploding energy. It really does possibly expend energy. It can be exhausting. Like for parents, for example, there are so many parents who are going through the process. They're so exhausted. They're so overstimulated. They're needing not just resting and digesting, but continuity, not just accessing their own bodies. They really want to access their own minds, which is exposed to so much chaos. And so giving them that space, giving everyone that space, um, we can have the problems, the challenges to thank for, because the world is going to get wilder, even wilder next year. It actually gives a greater opportunity for us to provide a container that is dynamic and alive enough, triggering enough, but also stable. That's a good word, like to hold the changes that would be easy to get lost in. It's like, where would you go? Where would you take this? There's just too many options. What would be the container that validates like all of it? So once again, I think we would close and open with the same. It has to be trust. Like, who would we trust? Where would we turn to now? There could only be one answer. for me, it's never me. It's the energy itself, the sentient, the intelligent thing that knows what it's doing no matter what. It's taking a lot of notes. It knows what it's doing. It doesn't lose a beat. It's always in step. It's hard for the mind to imagine that it's all collaborative. Like everywhere, what they're formulating, it's in my notebook. It's showing up. It's all it's a butterfly effect. It's all like speaking to each other. The one book, it's all just one day, one being, like signifying everything all at the same time. So I can't think of a better idea than let's just go back to ground zero. You will not lose anything that you've gained. Thank you for exposing your body to that. We're not here to just educate your mind. Your body has been asking these questions, and when it receives even the energy of the context, it's like I was asking this as a baby, but then I heard all these fragmented like elements that just serve to push me away from the whole holism, the whole systems. It's the body that really learns to absorb these, and it's the body that knows what to do. So I keep repeating this. This is really my closing point. Thank you for putting in the hours. Thank you for giving it time. Where otherwise, if you just went into a spiraling motion, you would procrastinate. It's like, I'll do it tomorrow. I have all the time. No, it's always now. All those series of nows, putting the hours. It's growth, it's development, it's evolution. It's moving forward. It's moving forward. Okay, so I think this is good. This has been amazing. We'll keep in touch. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for having us having this last call. I think this is very good. Okay, so if you could just unmute yourself and help me to close. Good night.
Thank you
Good
for your
afternoon.
time.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
taking the risk to put it out there. Thank you so much. Have a good Christmas and holidays.
Yeah. Merry
Yeah.
Christmas, everyone. Wow, so near.
Yeah.
Bye.
Chao,
Feliz
chao.
Navidad, Julian.
Adiós, a ti también. Bye. Y a todos, todas. Mm.